Welcome to the Baseball Insiders. I'm Adam Weinrib, joined not as always, but not as never, as sometimes, by Eric Cole, who does the Tuesday Prospect Show with me, filling in today for Robert Murray. We really appreciate Eric filling in. We really appreciate everybody joining us. And it's also happenstance, serendipity, a good opportunity to get Eric on a Friday show. So anybody who doesn't watch the Prospect Show and doesn't know about it, get to know Eric a little bit as we talk a little bit of ball to end the week. Robert Murray should be back on Monday. Today, Eric and I will go over Rafael Devers relenting, maybe, but not happily. A little bit of the Rays' potential leaving Tampa, which is feeling like maybe a fait accompli, plus a fit that makes no sense in the NL Central that could be legitimate but hasn't been finished yet. And, the Mets opening day starter is Clay Holmes. I can't do a podcast without talking about that. Eric, welcome to the show. Welcome to Friday. This is a little different than the Prospect Show, but also not really. It's just people talking about baseball.
I mean, yeah, pretty much, we're just going to be talking about the grown-up prospects, right? And, sorry to those who were wishing they could see Robert right now. We are both devilishly handsome, if that does help kind of ease the transition between the two, between having me here. But I'm excited to talk about, some big leaguers. Obviously, once a week we talk about prospects, you and I, kind of going through the goings-on. That's going to be something that's going on during the regular season. But I'm doing a little bit of pinch hitting here while Robert's under the weather. And, again, hopefully he'll be right back, and he'll be back Monday, and you guys won't have to see me too much more unless you want to, in which case you should be tuning into our prospect show each week.
Yeah, I recommend watching the Tuesday show in that case. Robert, we wish him the very best. He should be back on Monday. I won't say will be because it sounds like he's battling something, but should be, I presume. But obviously we presume to be on this show as well. But hey, get better soon, man. You'll get Robert's content in the meantime. If you join the Discord, you can ask us questions at either the Rumor Mill tier or the All-Star tier. 30-minute private chat in the Rumor Mill tier every Thursday with the one and only Robert Murray. So we'd love to see you there. Rate, review, subscribe, do all that stuff that you can do to the videos in the meantime. Subscribe to the Moonshot if you have not. That is Fansided's weekly baseball email newsletter, where Robert Murray and the Fansided MLB team break down all the biggest stories of the big leagues with humor, insight, and behind-the-scenes info. It's also on the Baseball Insiders feed on fansided.com, fansided.com/baseball-insiders. That is where you get the latest rumors and notes from Robert, humor and insight from yours truly. Got some columns there this week. And the best of baseball and pop culture from the Fansided MLB staff writers, including Eric, who's got a Tuesday column every Tuesday going along with the Prospect podcast. So if you want to read more from the Baseball Insiders, that is where to go. And Eric, the spring breakouts have begun as well. So for Prospect heads who were tuning in today, we watched the Red Sox and Rays. The problem with spring breakout schedule, one, Jim Callis told us on Tuesday's show that they've considered turning it into a tournament, which now I'm just mad at the spring breakout that we do have, even though it's cool because it's not that. But also, I don't think you're going to get two better rosters than the Rays and the Red Sox, and that one already happened. It's over. So Roman Anthony Meyer and Christian Campbell, scripted, all hit home runs. I'm not sure what else you wanted to see out of that other than what you got. Roman Anthony hit a baseball 632 feet, I believe.
That might be a bit of an understatement. That ball was hit and then was just non-existent anymore. That was a lot of fun. Maybe I would have preferred to see a Chandler Simpson inside the park home run or something, because that guy can absolutely fly. But there's a lot of great games that are going on the spring breakout side. A lot of prospects worth watching. I liked watching kind of the undersung guys, the guys that maybe aren't on top 30 lists, and they show out and you're like, hey, who's that guy? Again, I just think these are great short showcases that MLB put together. Although I am firmly in the camp with you that a tournament would be a lot of fun. I understand the logistics of doing so during spring training is a bit problematic, but again, it's a good time. It's a great time to see prospects that you normally wouldn't see. It's hard to watch minor league games unless you're willing to watch I don't know, 144p streams of minor league games on MILB TV, which, I don't get me wrong, I definitely have done and continue to do. But, this is a good way to introduce prospects to fans wide, and I just think it's a great event overall.
Yeah, maybe we make the minor league season start a week later. We could fit in a little tournament, around opening day at the spring break sites. I don't know. I'm an idea guy, but I'm not an execution guy. So everybody let me know how that might work. We'll see. Where is Adam on the podcast right now? That's where Adam is. I'm in the office. I'm
on location, Adam.
I'm on location in the New York City office. This is not my home. I do not live in a little booth, but today I am doing the podcast from a very small, confined space. That's where I live for the next 20 minutes. We appreciate it. Or maybe this is just a padded room I have to live in now that I know Clay Holmes is the Mets opening day starter. I don't have the faith that it's going to last. I understand the extreme productivity from spring training Clay Holmes. I'm not blind to it, but in terms of the small sample size volatility, I would direct Mets fans heartily to Clay Holmes's incredible 9 2/3 innings of spring training work with 13 Ks and an 0.62 whip. I would say it's a troll move to make him the opening day starter, but it's also a move out of necessity. Who at Mets camp is pitching better than Clay Holmes right now? Nobody. You're missing Shamanaya. You are missing Frankie Montas, who never would have had this opening day start anyway, but whatever. And Kodai Senga, I guess they're going to go with Holmes. Fine. It's clearly meant to be a middle finger to the New York Yankees. Also, he is throwing the ball quite well. I understand, but these are 3-inning spurts. These are essentially extended relief appearances. Pitchers are always ahead of hitters in camp, and Holmes's problem has never been a lack of dominant stuff. It has been the fact that he's a wild card when he enters, whether he has perfect command of that dominant stuff or has absolutely none. So my problem with Clay Holmes, the starter, has always been he could polish off a month of being the best reliever in baseball. And he did 2 years ago, 2023. He started the season just basically a month and a half of spotless work. And then he started getting spotted, right? And so if you're a reliever and you don't have it, you can be quickly removed. If you're a starter and you don't have it, you're a mile and a half hour lower than you should be, and the command is nil, and you've walked the bases loaded with 1 out in the first, it's your game. And I guess maybe not so much in 2025. It would be more disastrous outcome in 2000 or 90 or 80, but I'm going to need to see consistency, not even length, just consistency in 4 or 5 inning spurts before I'm like, oh yeah, I get it. And I wouldn't be shocked if he has a month of being one of the most dominant starters you've seen, but I would also be shocked if he doesn't have a month by the end of the year where Met fans are tearing their hair out. So congrats on the opening day troll.
Yeah, and I think it's kind of a bit of an indictment of the Mets offseason in a lot of ways. Obviously, they signed Juan Soto, big name, a lot of money. He's going to hit really well. But their lack of attention to their pitching staff and the guys that they decided to go with, it's starting to show. Now, look, I don't necessarily fault a team for taking a reliever and try to convert him back to a starter if you think it works. Obviously, the Braves did so last year with Reynaldo Lopez to a good bit of success, despite the fact they may have faded a little bit down the stretch. We saw Jordan Hicks do this. We've seen this conversion happen, and I don't hate it like in a vacuum, right? And again, Holmes has really good stuff when he's on. It's just not something that he's been able to sustain for like an entire season necessarily, especially, with this type of workload he's about to have. And is it necessarily, again, being the opening day starter, that's kind of it's a bit of a vanity exercise in a lot of ways. Some people say like, oh, that means you're anointing him as your best starter.
Mm-hmm.
Lol, Mets, right? But I don't necessarily think that is true. But at the same time, I look at this Mets rotation and I have like zero faith. I mean, again, I know I'm wearing a Braves jersey here, and I'm like, this seems like something I'm contractually obligated to say. Yeah. But just look at this rotation. There's a lot of questions. There's injury issues top to bottom. They've lost guys. They haven't really invested. That's the one thing that they haven't really invested in is kind of a long-term frontline starter. And I just look at that rotation, and it doesn't seem like a team that can really make a push to be one of like the true top contenders in the NL. Again, I'm happy for Clay Holmes. I'm sure for him and for a lot of players, it's an honor to be named an opening day starter. But at the same time, I just look at it and I'm just like, this isn't like good news if you're a Mets fan, right? You just like see like, oh, this was the guy that we decided we're going to promote when at the opening of the season, and hopefully for him it works out. And it's not his fault necessarily, but it's definitely kind of a puzzling sort of decision and kind of speaks to the state of the Mets right now.
Yeah, and also I apologize. It was last year that Holmes had a 0 ERA in April, and that's why it's so stark that by the end of the year he was leading the league in blown saves. I memory hold. I thought that was 2 years ago because I was like, that can't possibly have been the way he started last year. It was. He had a 0 ERA into May, and then he spiraled. I'm not sure why the comment section is lighting up with other converted relievers who became starters.
Yeah, it can happen.
My trepidation here is not that it can't happen. It's that Clay Holmes is a 2-pitch pitcher who on occasion will cameo in a game where he has no idea where any of his 2 pitches are going. There's a chance, but Seth Lugo was already a 5-6 pitch demon when they decided to turn him into a starter. And he was dominant pretty much from the go. That was a smart move. Michael King, same situation. Michael King was a starter all through the minors. He wasn't a reliever until he got to the majors. Clay Holmes was a failed reliever who the Yankees converted into a dominant closer. And again, I'm not sure why the comment section is lighting up with other converted relievers who become starters. It happens all the time. It could work for Clay Holmes. I just don't foresee it working this quickly. And I do think a lot of Mets fans are victory lapping that he's been named the opening day starter as if that means he's already pitched well on opening day and beyond, when in fact all it means is they've given him the opportunity based on 3 inning spring outings. It could work. We're naming some successful examples in the comments, but it's not even me saying I'm a believer or not a believer. I'm just saying be careful what you wish for, and maybe don't say done deal. Not even after a couple of starts, after just some exhibition games and before his first start. We'll see. I certainly would rather have Clay Holmes than Lance Lynn this season. That's for sure. And there was a rumor that the free agent pitching market was getting a little bit thinner after Lynn and Patrick Corbin are still waiting and Kyle Gibson is still waiting and the Yankees don't have any starters. So maybe they should look at these guys. Lance Lynn of the Cubs was picking up steam yesterday, and Bob Nightingale tweeted that they were in discussions. And given that we haven't heard any real Lance Lynn rumors in quite a while, that he was connected to the Pirates as a bullpen option at some point, but that obviously petered out and they spent their money on Andrew Heaney. The fact that we were hearing him connected to anyone made us all think they were hurtling towards a deal. 24 hours later, no dice. So I didn't understand the fit. I didn't understand plucking up. Seems like a pretty weird and dart at a dartboard way of addressing pitching depth for the Chicago Cubs. But maybe it's not legitimate because we're nowhere closer to a resolution here. I'm curious though what you even think that was supposed to do.
For me, it just feels like this was like a Lance Lynn to the Cubs bullpen angle, because I just don't see him necessarily as a fit in that rotation, like in that market at this point in his career. He's obviously older, like he's basically a fastball only guy, and the results haven't been quite as good starting lately, but he is a guy who can throw pretty hard, and in shorter stints could make sense. And we know earlier on in the offseason, obviously you mentioned the Pirates, the Padres were also interested in him at one point as a reliever. Other teams have, I'm sure, checked in and see if he's willing to do that. And again, like as a bullpen option who can throw multiple innings for you, who like still does get guys to strike out at a pretty high clip. I'm interested in seeing him as a reliever, but again, when you have like Justin Steele and you know my guy Shota Imanaga, Tyrone, I don't necessarily see, like, why do you sign Matt Boyd if you're the Cubs and then only go out just to get, you know, the ghost of Lance Lynn, right? So I just don't know if it's a rotation play so much as maybe it's a bullpen depth option that they think they can get some upside out of, if it's even true. Again, it's the sourcing here is a little bit questionable. We've heard literally nothing about it, and I just think that he is an aging arm that maybe could be interesting in relief. But in terms of the Cubs, I'm kind of with you that I don't know if I necessarily understand the fit unless they have some kind of like specific bullpen plan for him. Maybe, you know, they need a guy who they think can give them 2 innings and miss a bunch of bats along the way, and that will like dictate how they're using some of the other guys towards the back end of that rotation and kind of like handcuff him to some of those guys. But beyond that, like it is kind of a weird fit. But he also would probably come reasonably cheap. And again, there are good things about Lance Lynn. His secondaries just aren't one of them.
Yeah, especially not at this stage in the game. Wouldn't be the lingering starter I would entertain signing, but I am not the Chicago Cubs and never will be. I never profess to be. I won't do it. I simply will not be the Cubs. But we'll obviously keep track any planes from wherever Lance Lynn lives to Tokyo, because it's also especially an odd time to join the Cubs because you're either hanging out in America waiting for them to return or you have to immediately go overseas. Speaking of a only slightly less awkward predicament, Rafael Devers finally spoke to the media again yesterday. Wouldn't talk about what he talked about with the front office, but he did finally say after a 2-week silence that he would do what the Red Sox asked him to, which is really all that matters because he has to, but we have to hear it from his mouth so that we know he's not going to sit out in protest. He also said he told Sean McAdam he considered asking for a trade and then didn't take it that far. So I guess that is still a lingering possibility floating in the air like the vapors of a bad fart. But for now, He's going to be a Red Sox, and he'll do whatever Alex Cora tells him to, which was the likeliest outcome all along, considering he's being paid $300 million and is the centerpiece of their lineup. And Alex Bregman can opt out after 2025. I don't know if he will, but it's a 3-year deal max right now. So yeah, gotta keep Devers happy. Do you think Rafi Devers will be the DH on opening day for the Boston Red Sox?
I do think he's going to be the DH just because any other outcome like introduces more drama to the situation than there already is. You know, Devers has already said that he would do what they asked him to do, and I just don't see a world where like Bregman's going to voluntarily move around, and it's going to get a little weird at this stage of the game in terms of like getting guys ready to play in the field and all that stuff. This is a really odd situation to me. The Red Sox and Bregman were connected to each other all off season.
Mm-hmm.
I have a tough time believing that like the Red Sox and Devers didn't have a conversation about what that world would look like if that deal was to happen. It's not like this deal came out of nowhere and like Devers never saw anything coming. If there are rumors like, hey, the Red Sox are interested in Bregman, I don't know why he's not on the phone calling somebody to figure out how he fits into their plans, and I don't understand why Boston wouldn't be calling Devers to be like, look, this is the situation. We think this is the guy that can help us. Maybe this is a short-term move for you. What are your thoughts? This is the guy that making $27-28 million a year into the 2030s, and he's acting like he had no clue what was going on, and the Red Sox are acting like, well, tough luck, buddy. You know what I mean? This is a new regime now. We're doing it this way. This is not a great way to kind of treat a guy that you're going to be in a long-term relationship with as one of your biggest stars. Now, granted, Boston fans are probably well aware that, you know, doing things in tactful ways involving your players isn't always worked out the way it should. But at the same time, like this just feels like a very odd situation as to like why communication wasn't happening to begin with. It almost feels like one side isn't even telling the truth, like, or that Devers like voiced his displeasure already and assumed that they were going to listen to him, and then they made the move regardless. And that's a kind of a different question. You know, obviously the trade talk is, you know, like, you know, I considered asking for a trade. Again, this is probably a short-term situation. If I'm just being honest, I think that there's a strong likelihood that if Bregman plays well this year, he's just going to try free agency again, because this is clearly not the deal that he was looking for this offseason. So maybe it's just kind of a short-term hiccup and everything goes back to being normal, you know, in 2026 or whatever. But it's just an odd situation from a communication standpoint. And so do I think that this is kind of the alignment we're going to see out of Boston? Yeah, I do, just because it seems like this is Devers extending an olive branch to just get it over and done with for now. But again, if like Bregman opts in after this coming season, I suspect we might be hearing more chatter about what Devers' real feelings are after that.
I agree with you. I think opening day DH, and he's going to have to grin and bear it. And Tyler Milliken, who's been around the Baseball Insiders, big fan of Tyler, if he's happens to watch this or on reruns, reiterated some of Sean McAdams' column in a tweet and said that Devers claims he felt lied to over the offseason because the team did consistently talk to him about these rumors and tell him that the Bregman and Arenado rumors were bogus. Now, that is Devers' side, and that's after Cora said Bregman was going to play a lot of second base, and Craig Breslow endorsed Devers defensively. So we did hear Cora at the winter meeting saying, I always thought Bregman would be a Gold Glove second baseman someday. We don't know if Devers is telling the truth about or had the correct interpretation of what the Red Sox were telling him. But we do know that Cora publicly talked up Bregman as a second baseman before all of a sudden, 2 months later, it seems like he and Bregman were really trying to make this Red Sox thing happen. And then finally they got it done. And then at that point, Bregman felt like a third base fit after, publicly 2 months prior, they had said he'll be a Gold Glove second baseman someday. The word someday doing a lot of heavy lifting there for Alex Cora. But, you know, no matter what Devers was told or what he heard, we do know that Cora said second base in a public press conference that we saw. So that's something in Devers' favor.
Yeah, and I wonder if maybe like to get the deal over the finish line, and like Boston felt like they had to do something, they had to like nix that idea too. There's a lot of voices and like on the Red Sox side, and again, it's just hard for me to parse what was actually communicated and what's the truth, because there's so much weirdness involved in this story that I just don't. again, like we know that there was like in the Red Sox organization, there's like some team people that were really pulling for a Bregman move. Others were saying that this isn't the move they necessarily needed to do, and who was communicating what, and who was even in a position of authority to promise anything. I just, what I mean? Like, could Cora even make that decision? Could Breslow even make that decision? Like, was one thing, was it talking out of one side of your mouth and saying something else out of the other? It's hard. It's a hard situation, and it's not something that you should do with a guy who you're under contract with for like the better part of a decade, and is one of probably the last 5 years, he's probably been one of the top 15 hitters in all of baseball. And what you've done is just pissed him off before the season even started. It's a hard situation for me to understand.
And then you take Garrett Cole off the mound, so he loses 7 homers. Hey, look, we're gonna see what happens to Devers when the season begins. I would suspect that no matter what his mood is, he's not gonna let it. We knew that Bogarts let his mood affect the Red Sox a couple of years ago. Devers isn't the kind of guy who seems to want to be the face of the franchise anyway, or a leader. So I would imagine him being a little bit moody and withdrawn, probably not going to affect what the team already had planned in the clubhouse and in the locker room. And hey, unleash that anger on the regular season. You're one of the best 15 hitters in baseball. So go do your thing. As long as he stays healthy, I do think he'll have a big year no matter what position he plays in. But he might have some realignment coming in his division. The Tampa Bay Rays, I wouldn't say shocked everybody yesterday, but they announced they will no longer be pursuing their planned new stadium site. They only have 1 year in Tampa at George M. Steinbrenner Field, the spring training home of the New York Yankees. And we were told they might, I don't know what they're going to do in 2026, but not that. The Yankees have made it clear that's a 1-year arrangement. And also, why would you want to lock yourself into 3 years in a minor league stadium? Sorry, Sacramento A's. They have to figure it out. So maybe it's renovations on the Trop, but that seems like a long endeavor and something else they're going to have to find funding for, and isn't a long-term home anyway. That's why they had a new stadium plan. So what happens in 2026? Someone from Orlando already stepped up today and said, I'm an investor and I can bring him to Orlando, whatever. I got time on my hands. It also feels like a well-timed leak of the Nashville Stars hats this week. Just so happens about 1 day before this momentous Rays announcement, New Era collaborates with a team that intends to bring baseball to Nashville, to say, by the way, we got hats. New Era doesn't usually do this. We don't usually make hats, but we did today. So does this all mean anything to you? It does not feel like a coincidence to me.
I don't think it's a coincidence either. And there's definitely some opposing interests in this whole situation. What seems to be the plan is that the city is willing to do renovations to the Trop to try to get it ready for 2026. But there's like a real concern that all the damage from the hurricane cannot be repaired by the start of the 2026 season. Yeah. Now, again, I have like literally no experience in these types of large scale repairs.
I have never built a roof in my life.
No, especially one that covers an entire baseball stadium. So obviously this is a bit of a problem. So I think that the Rays are being a little bit opportunistic here, particularly the Rays owner. I think there is likely that there's at least been some conversations about what a world would look like if the Rays were to move to Nashville. I know for sure, and the league's been very clear on this, they want to keep the Rays in Florida, or especially in the Tampa area. Now, baseball in Florida has not been the draw that I think the league has hoped for. Really, there's more Braves fans down in Florida than there are combined for the Marlins and the Rays right now. But I think that the plan is that they're going to try and hope that the stadium is repaired in time for 2026. And then you have a couple years to play with to kind of figure out what the next move is. I don't think the league is going to approve the Rays moving to Nashville. Now, that said, I know obviously Nashville really wants a team. I also think they need to find someone else to design their hats and stuff if you're going to be putting forth,
holy downgrade. Yeah.
Yeah, it's literally it just looks like a stock photo of like put in these initials, put in these letters, we'll generate a hat for you.
Yeah, imagine getting together in a boardroom and being like, we got a team called the Nashville Stars. Like, what do you think should be on the hat? The letter N? Yeah, that's almost all the way there. Anybody else want to chime in? The letter S? Oh, yeah. Okay, now we're cooking with gas. What color should they be? Vibrant ones that represent the city of Nashville? How about the complete absence of color? Yes, this guy rules. Promote this guy. Black and white. I'm the first guy to ever think about putting that on a hat. Great. I agree. I'm not fact checking that. Yeah. Rays uniforms to what we saw from the Nashville group yesterday. It's impossible to calculate a bigger downgrade.
Yeah, it's pretty brutal. I mean, like, and just from a pure gear perspective, the Rays logo is orders of magnitude better than the Nashville one.
The Rays have great gear. The Rays have powder blue. The Rays have sunbursts. The Rays have very evocative jerseys. And the Nashville jerseys, so far, so snoozy.
My feeling is that what ultimately happens is that the league forces Stu Sternberg to sell the team. That is my honest opinion. Now, what that looks like, does that mean the team goes to Orlando? I'm maybe a little bit skeptical. I think that I'm willing to take Manfred at his word in this one instance that he wants to keep a team in the Tampa area. I think that one of the reasons for that is that he wants to keep expansion options on the table, and that would be Nashville. Obviously, in the comments we have Portland, Charlotte. Keeping Orlando open as an option for a separate team. I don't think they necessarily just want to keep moving team guys around, because you start just kind of like consolidating teams in the best spots, and then how are you going to expand? Because no one's going to want to go back to Tampa if you move the team out of there already, and then then there's associated costs and all that. So I think what ultimately happens is that there's a fractured relationship between the Rays and the league, and obviously the Rays and the city, and the Rays and even their fans. But I think that the Rays are trying to leverage something to make a move to Nashville. I think that's going to end up failing. Mm-hmm. I think baseball is going to eventually come to Nashville, and it seems like it could be a potentially great thing for the sport down the line. I just don't think the Rays are going to be the team that move that. I just think that Sternberg is regretting his investment. He sees what's happening with the A's, and they kind of force their way out to move to Vegas. He's trying to make it like kind of one last play. It's probably not going to work, and once that happens, he's probably just going to have to sell the team. What happens after that? I'm going to guess my best guess is that they'll try to stay in Tampa somewhere. Obviously, they can't use the same site that they are using now, because the city's already planning on selling that site that what they were kind of inking, kind of as a placeholder for that's where we're going to build it. So now they're going to have to find somewhere else to build it. Maybe it's closer to Tampa, maybe a place that has more access to the population, or they just completely renovate the Trop and make it a more suitable place to play baseball. But ultimately, I think what happens is that that Sternberg sells the team.
I'll also add that the Nashville Stars hats have already sold out, apparently. So, Eric, how many boxes of these things did you buy?
Literally zero. And I wouldn't look. I'm like not a gear guy at all. So when I say something, I'm in the minority. You know what I mean? Like in what we do writing about baseball, I know for certain that there's a lot of people that care about gear. I'm just not one of them. And I know I'm saying this while wearing an authentic Braves jersey, right? But at the same time, like this was gifted to me. You know what I mean? And if I'm saying that, like, wow, that hat's particularly bad, that probably should tell you something, because I'm not a guy that's going to be like critiquing individual stitch choices. I'm just gonna be like, wow, that's just not a good hat. Now, so if I see like a cool, fun, minor league hat, I'm all about that. But beyond that, it was kind of an uninspired choice. And if that's how you're going to kind of unveil your pitch to bring baseball to Nashville, you might would have spent more than $50 on a graphic designer.
Yeah, I am eagerly awaiting the new City Connects, by the way. TikTok. Let's see when it's opening day in less than 2 weeks. So it'd be great to get some of those across the finish line. All right, Eric, got anything in the notebook before we close this out?
Well, in classic Robert fashion, I feel confident in saying that the Pirates aren't up to anything.
Nope.
Sorry to our Pirates fans. My understanding is that this is kind of a tradition on Baseball Insiders. Just to remind everyone.
The Padres too. We just say, hey, there's nothing going on there over and over again.
Yeah, AJ Preller's probably making some phone calls. He's probably not getting a lot of calls back. And again, it sounds like that they're still talking to teams about Dylan Cease. John Heyman had that report that there was 9 teams that were reportedly had checked in on Cease's availability, including the entirety of the AL East, which is pretty funny to me. I also think there's very little chance that they trade him unless they get a big league pitcher back in a trade, because that's a team that still wants to compete. So that's your Padres update. That's your Pirates update. Let's see if there's anyone else. I think that's pretty much it. I think we covered the 2 teams that are pretty much the mainstays on this regular show. I hope that I was able to fill in Robert's absence adequately, and I hope that he's feeling better next week.
I do too. This was more than adequate. This was great. We thank everybody for joining us. Sorry about the non-Robert, but I think we more than made up for it. Although there is only one Robert Murray, and we will see him next week on Monday, Wednesday, Friday. I got that right. I did get that right. Eric will be back on the Tuesday show recapping spring breakout. So join us here on the Baseball Insiders YouTube channel for that as well. Fansided.com/baseball-insiders for more written content. The Baseball Insiders Discord, all you got to do is hit that join button below and start your journey. The comments love you, Eric, so we're off to a good start. Comments haven't liked me in about 10 years.
Hey, I'm doing my absolute best.
We're hot. We're hot in the streets. Hey, we'll see you on all social media platforms too. Fansided MLB on TikTok, Instagram. A lot of great content being posted there by our producer Joanne, who's doing incredible work. So check that out. And come see us when we're live and or listen to us on all audio platforms, all podcast platforms. Rate, review, subscribe. Anything you do to podcasts, you can do to this podcast. So we would love if you would do that. Eric Cole, thank you for joining me, and I will see you right back here on Tuesday.